Hey guys, it's Hart. Going to be going over my final look core plays for the Week 7 Sunday main slate here on DraftKings, as well as my final look core or final look player pool. So make sure that like button and subscribe. Let's get right into it in terms of build for this slate. It looks like the balance build is going to be kind of the main, chalky build for this slate, which makes sense. There's a lot of good spots, a lot of good players to get to across the board in terms of that mid-range price. In terms of news, in terms of injury news, the biggest news right now is that DJ Moore is ruled out. And so the wide receivers for the Commanders are going to be Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane there, Chris Moore. They'll probably bring in some of these, practice squad players. I don't think we have to worry about that. But if you're looking for value, the best value is going to be the wide receivers for the Commanders. In terms of ranking, I'd put it as Chris Moore at the top, Luke McCaffrey slightly below him. I think those two are solid options. And then Jalen Lane is the kind of the rookie dart throw play. And obviously they still have Zach Ertz. We're still seeing if he's going to play or not. If he's out, obviously that it throws everything in the loop there in terms of that passing game. But if he's in, he's probably the safest option to go to in terms of a pass catcher for the Commanders. But I do really like, Chris Moore as a really, really cheap, as you can see, only $3,000. He should be out there at least 70+% of the game because he already was that last game. He was about, I think it was close to 70% with DJ Moore playing. With Deebo Samuel playing. So with Deebo Samuel out, obviously that means those, wide receivers should be playing a healthy amount there in the best game environment. So in terms of my top four quarterbacks, it's going to be Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott, and Caleb Williams. Obviously with Mahomes, MVP level, gets Rashee Rice back. Great spot here against the Raiders. Only downside is 11.5 point spread. Can the Raiders keep it close? Obviously pairing him with Rashee Rice makes really it makes total sense. It makes really good sense to do that in this game spot. Jaden Daniels, as mentioned, it's just more so a head scratcher, question mark in terms of like who he's going to be throwing it to and who's going to be relying on. I really like doing a naked stack with him, like just playing him and not playing in these pass catchers, because if he does spread out the ball, he could easily get there without having to pair a pass catcher with him. Now Chris Moore is super cheap. Same thing with Luke McCaffrey and Zach Ertz. So I don't think it's necessary to do the naked stack. I think it's an option. It's definitely a contrarian option. But yeah, Jaden Daniels still looks really good in that game environment against the worst defense in the league. And the Cowboys, and same thing with Dak, MVP level, get CD Lamb back. This offense has been clicking. They've been really good. Can easily throw up for 300 plus, as we know, there for the Cowboys. So those are kind of the top three, and then I will loop Caleb Williams into this group just because good game environment here at home against the Saints. He has good pass stacking options with him: DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and he has that rushing ability to be able to go out there, get 50 rushing yards and even a rushing touchdown. So he looks like the best quarterback option just in terms of like value and kind of simulations overall. Are loving Caleb Williams right now as the top four quarterbacks are those guys. In terms of some quick value plays, some quick contrarian tournament options, Jalen Hurts averaging 21 fantasy points per game, even though everyone's been shitting on that offense and that team overall. Like still, the dude's averaging 21 per game. So it's like if you get that and we get a couple tush pushes, he's easily going to go for 30 plus. Obviously, not the best spot there against the Minnesota at Minnesota, but still, we know the upside there with Hurts. Moving on down a little bit more, Justin Herbert, he gets Quentin Johnson back. We know the upside there with Herbert. He hasn't flashed it since week 1, which is a little bit of an issue, as well as that their offensive line is still banged up. Joe Out should be back next week. When that happens, I'd like Herbert more, but still, I think it's a solid tournament option. Same thing there with Daniel Jones, Justin Fields. Obviously, with no Garrett Wilson, he should have massive rushing upside. It should be him, Mason Taylor, tight end, and Breece Hall is kind of the only ones you want to get to on the Jets side. And then moving on down a little bit more, Winston Jackson Dart, horrible game environment for him. Obviously, a rookie going into Denver, the best pass rush in the league so far, but obviously he has that rushing upside. So right now, in terms of core plays, we'll go with Caleb Williams. Moving over to the running backs, this is where a lot of the chalk is going to be spent on the weekend, just because there's a lot of good options. In terms of the two safest spend ups, it's going to be Josh Jacobs here, Jonathan Taylor. Absolutely love both of them. I really like Saquon. I've been on him every single game this season. It hasn't worked out in terms of hoping it's finally his breakout game. Not the best spot, as I mentioned, but still, the Vikings are susceptible to the run. We know Saquon, obviously one of the best running backs, if not the best in the league. Still, the offensive line is really, really bad in terms of just the run blocking. It just looks like they're worn down from last year being so good. But still, I'm going to take a shot here. I really, really like him there as a really, really good tournament option. Javonte Williams going against the Commanders, going to be super chalky, but for good reason. He gets a great matchup against that team. We just saw what DeAndre Swift did them a few days ago. Breece Hall, looking like he's almost up there as the highest owned running back on the slate. As I mentioned, solid matchup here against the Panthers. They've been a little bit better than usual in terms of stopping the run the past few games, but obviously it's going to be Justin Fields, him, and Mason Taylor as the only kind of viable options for the team on offense. He should see close to 20 rushing attempts, probably close to 5 to 6 targets, if not more. That's why he's super chalky, coming in at a really cheap price tag of $6,300. I think it makes great sense to leverage off that and get to Jordan Mason if you want to. $6,200. He's seen 15 touches or more the past 3 weeks with no Aaron Jones, and I think it should continue once again. The only thing with him, he's kind of rushing dependent. He's been getting involved a little bit there the past few games in terms of catching the ball. They've stopped going to Xavier Scott, thankfully. But yeah, he just has good upside. He's a solid running back, good game environment, super cheap. And he's sandwiched in between two really, really chalky guys in terms of Breece Hall and Bill. So it makes sense to, for him to be a really good leverage spot and kind of a contrarian option there. As I mentioned, Bill, I think if you're going to fade Jaden Daniels, I think it makes sense going to Bill there, hoping he kind of absorbs those touchdowns. Quinshon Judkins going to be the chalkiest running back on the slate, and for good reason. His his rush yards line right now is I think at like 90.5, 91. Just a great game environment in terms of it's super low scoring. There's really, really bad weather, and so they should just be running the ball a ton there. Against a really, really bad Miami defense, I'm going to eat up that chalk. It makes sense. DeAndre Swift, as I mentioned, easily pairable here with Caleb Williams just because of that pass catching upside. A little bit banged up, but I expect him to be good to go. I will mention J.K. Dobbins as kind of a tournament option. Good matchup there against against the Giants. As you can see, hasn't really flashed too much of an upside, but 5,600 if he goes out and gets you 18 fancy points, that's nothing to bat an eye at. That's good option there. So in terms of the second running back, we'll just go with Bill for now if we are just fading Jaden Daniels. In terms of wide receivers, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, I think I want to get to at least one of them. They both look fantastic. Rome Odunze, it makes sense if you're going with Caleb to pair him with Rome. Obviously, last week, DJ Moore is more so the wide receiver one. He got a little bit banged up. He should be good to go. No question marks or tags on him right now, but I expect Rome to kind of slide back into that wide receiver one role, go for 8+ targets here, and a great matchup against the Saints. Moving down a little bit more, Quentin Johnson is back, 5,900. He's been the deep ball threat there for the Chargers. Second highest game total on the slate. I would not be surprised if he has a really good game. Sutton, I expect a bounce back for him. He is a really strong option there. Moving on a little bit more, Rashee Rice is going to eat the chalk there. Obviously, I already mentioned him with Mahomes, but yeah, coming back, he should be heavily involved. Moving on down a little bit more, Chris Olave going to be super, super chalky there as a bring back option. 5,400 in that Bears game. He's just getting peppered with those targets. The Bears defensive backs are pretty bad, so that makes sense there. Moving on down a little bit more, DJ Moore, as I mentioned. Pittman's an option. I really like Jordan Addison, especially if you're not going to get to Justin Jefferson. I think it makes sense to get to Jordan Addison there as kind of a leverage spot. Moving on down a little bit more here, there's no Ridley, no downs. So obviously for those Indiana Colts, Warren, Pierce, Pittman Jr., it makes sense to kind of have more interest in them just because they'll get targeted more. I really like Rashid Shaheed here, 4,500 as the leverage spot. If you want to leverage off of Chris Olave, Shaheed is the best option there in terms of that 4,500. Not getting a ton of targets. It's just more so we know he can break out a touchdown from anywhere, especially against this Bears secondary. So I really like him there. And as I mentioned, we have those value pieces for the Commanders if we want to get to them. In terms of tight end here, for me, I think it's just clearly two of the best options are going to be, there's three best options right now. It's paying up for McBride or Warren. I think Ferguson is just slightly below. He's just a little bit too cheap with CeeDee Lamb coming back because he does kind of shift into that second/third option with George Pickens. A lot of times it would kind of just be that CeeDee and Javonte Williams show, as we saw kind of early on in the season. The first two games, it was kind of up and down in terms of the production for Ferguson and Pickens, but he's still viable. But it's going to be McBride, Warren for me. And then it's going to be Fannin Jr. just because Njoku has been ruled out. Fannin Jr. should be getting a healthy workload here. 3,900. Obviously, it's not the best game environment, but still short passes. He should be able to feast. He has been getting some rushing attempts as well, so he looks really good there. Those are kind of the three main options, but then I will mention Tucker Kraft. We know he has really good upside there, 4,900. Evan Ingram, he's been getting involved a lot recently, 7, 6, and 6 targets. And then Zach Ertz, as I mentioned, pairing him with Jaden Daniels. And I will mention Mason Taylor here for the Jets. With no Garrett Wilson, he should be their number one passing option. I'll be interested to see kind of how that plays out. But 3,400 in a good spot against Carolina. He looks really, really good there. So right now, I will put him as a core play at 3,400. And then for defense, I really like paying up for the Chiefs, the Packers, the Broncos. Moving on down into the mid-range, I really like the Browns there at 3,000. And if you want a little bit of a cheaper one for you guys, I don't mind the Panthers or the Jets kind of going with one of those two and hoping, obviously, the other team plays bad. They could both play terrible for all we know. Like, that's a good game of mine to get the two cheapest kind of defense you want to get to. But in terms of this video, I think it makes sense just to go to... I think I'm going to go to the Browns. Just a good matchup, good spot. Expect a bounce back game for Myles Garrett, who had a really bad game there in that last game. They did not get a single sack as a team against Aaron Rodgers, which is kind of pitiful because that dude can't move. But yeah, that is the core play video. Touch on all kind of my favorite plays. Obviously, a lot of them are chalky, but it makes sense. And as I said in kind of my recap videos, you do not need to get super, super contrarian to take down $1 million to first. The past 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen it where there's been a ton of chalk. Everyone plays the chalk. In the winning lineup, all they had to do to get different was play two different guys, whether it's, two receivers they got contrarian with, or a receiver and running back in the flex, or if it was a receiver and a tight end. Like, you don't need to get super contrarian to take down $1 million first, even if you are playing all the chalk in all the other positions. Like, all it takes is 1 to 2 guys to get different to be able to take down that $1 million first. So make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Do really appreciate all you guys' support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.